welcome to another episode of Convos with Sazón with yours truly, Cata Mejía. Today we have Brandon Espinosa with us. He is the founder of the Salsa Project. Welcome. ¿Cómo vas?
Thank you. Todo bien. Gracias.
Thank you for joining me. Let's start off with talking about your background and upbringing. ¿De dónde son tus raíces?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you for having me.
Of course.
I'm a Bronx boy, born to a Puerto Rican mother and a Cuban father who immigrated here when he was about 9 or 10. Lived in Florida for a little of my infancy, which they call Little Puerto Rico. And then I came back to New York, Bronx specifically, when I was 9 years old, and I've been there since. And I grew up with my culture being very prevalent throughout the home and everything that I did. And so here we are today, still proud of our culture and my culture, and figuring out a way to make sure that our culture is preserved for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of your home and your family, how would you say that has influenced your love for salsa music and also the culture that comes with it? We were talking earlier off camera, you have some of icons on, your arm, you have a hat, you're very proud clearly of salsa. So talk about that.
Absolutely. So I grew up in a household of music, right? Music was always around me. It's a part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
My mother used to work for Fania, which, you sit down with her and
That's
stories
iconic.
for days. Absolutely.
You should have brought her with you too.
She is a bag full of different stories and experiences working for Fania and Johnny Pacheco and Jerry Masucci, and specifically in Puerto Rico. And then my dad was a band boy and always around the music, a collector of music, and not just salsa, everything from jazz, soul, funk, Afro-Caribbean, what have you. And so the music just was a part of my upbringing. And as I grew up, my parents would always take me to shows, different shows, specifically salsa shows. And it was like an immersion, like a cultural immersion into this genre of music that I heard at home, but now was able to witness and experience live, right? And I often looked around and I was like, man, I'm like the youngest person here. And as I got older, I started to wrestle with this thought of how is salsa going to be preserved if younger people aren't getting exposed to it, right? And so that was like my hypothesis, if you will. And long story short, you fast forward, and about 7 years ago is when my first daughter was born. And when she was born, she was really that catalyst that allowed me to take an idea and a thought and put it into action. And hence the Salsa Project was born.
Amazing. And we'll get to that in a moment. But I'm curious to know, before we step into the Salsa Project, how do you stay connected to salsa beyond just playing it maybe in the car or when you work out? How else is it present in your life?
For sure. So, the musical element, right, is a big part. I've been fortunate enough to make a lot of friends in this industry, right? And I think a part of this work is really learning the history. Mm-hmm. And I'm very clear that I am a rookie when it comes to this music, right? I'm always learning, and there's so much history and different perspective, right? So I think one way I stay connected is through that. And then I think family, right, is another big element to all of this, right? And their storytelling. Because I often say, like, salsa is this vehicle, but it's really a preservation of culture, tradition, and history that we're talking about through the music. And when you look at the city we're in, right, and specifically where I was raised, which is the Bronx, New York, a.k.a. El Condado de la Salsa, it's where salsa was born, right? And the story of salsa is really an immigration story. Mm-hmm. And so then you start to look at the places and spaces that existed during this time in this era. You quickly realize that they weren't only spaces for music, but they were also political spaces, communal spaces. So I always try to stay attached to the history and learn both from those that have lived it and work it, but also from my family through a different lens and how they've experienced it and what it meant for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate 100%. Being from Colombia, salsa has a huge role in our upbringing, in our everyday life, in our culture. We decimos que lo llevamos en la sangre, no solamente la bailada, sino el ritmo. Now we can talk about the Salsa Project. So you said the catalyst was your daughter about 7 years ago, but talk about the movement itself, because it's not just, an organization or a company or anything like that. Like, there's much more of a vision behind it. So I want to hear that directly from you.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe in October we'll celebrate 7 years. Something that started as a passion project and an idea, and has now morphed into this beautiful community of people from all walks of life. But yeah, it started as a love letter to this music, to this genre, that has picked me up during days I was down, and has helped me celebrate during times when I've been winning, right? And so, when my daughter was born, I was like, what am I going to do here? And I started to think about the project through four different elements. And one was the documentation, similar to what we're doing here today. And so I started doing like a little docu-series, and I interviewed my mom and Eddie Montalvo and Mike Amadeo, and it was really beautiful. And then another element to that was like merchandise, right? I like to wear what I believe in and support brands that I believe in, and there wasn't a lot of like cool salsa merch in the market. So I started to work with local designers and collaborate and partner on designs that I could put onto a hat, a shirt. And then there was this online platform amplifying the voices of others that were doing work relevant to the culture. And then I guess the element that really took off were our events, right? I was looking to create this space where we could bring people together and immerse them in an experience that was both moving, powerful, and inspiring. And so what started in a sala with 15 people has now morphed into a multi-city project that has brought hundreds together. Recently, doing a show in El Barrio with El Museo del Barrio, that was really beautiful, and just a salute to the history and the character, right, of this music and the people that live there. But it has ranged from doing shows with Eddie Palmieri in Crotona Park to doing shows with Sammy Garcia in La Factoria in Puerto Rico. And it's been an incredible, beautiful journey that I think has really been supported by the people and only exists because of the community that supports it.
So I don't think I've mentioned this to you before, but I've been in New York for about 4.5 years now. And one of the first salsa events that I don't even know how I came across it was actually put on by the Salsa Project. So
Oh, wow.
I've been following you since and can attest to the community building aspect of your events, and the fact that regardless of whether you go knowing someone or you end up meeting someone on the dance floor or just at the event itself, it's good vibes from my experience, at least. And I'm sure that's something that you strive for. As you have approached this vision, right, and pursued it into the bigger project that it's turned into, what challenges have you had to overcome?
Sure. So I think a lot of people see, the glimmer, the highlights, right, the wins. But the reality is there's a lot of work, right? I'm sure you could attest to that as well. It's not easy to take a vision and an idea and act upon it. And acting upon it, right, you get a lot of no's along the way. So in the first 2 years of my business, right, I was hemorrhaging money. And I didn't think about it as a business. I thought of it as a passion project. And I'm like, maybe you're supposed to lose money. And quickly realize, no, that's not really true, right? You want to invest in yourself and your ideas. But how do you make it make sense, right? And so, 2 years in, I was about to fold the company and dissolve the business. And luckily, I was able to connect with different partners and community members that were connected in different industries and wanted to support my work, i.e. sponsor. And as you may know, sponsorship really helps alleviate production costs of operating, and allows you to focus a bit more on the mission and what you want to do. And so it was 2020. It was the pandemic, and everything shifted from being in person to being virtual. And I quickly had to think about, how do I engage my community? And so at the time, I had a decent Rolodex of people I knew. And so I started doing something like this, right? And having conversations around the music, the history, all through Instagram lives, and sometimes we would get shut down. And in that process, I had a sponsor that came along and wanted to sponsor one of my events and connect with their community and the Latino community and kind of speak to them specifically. And they gave me sponsorship money. I was like, oh, wow, this is incredible. And there's this saying, like, nobody wants to be first, but everybody wants to be first to be second.
Mm-hmm.
And so when one person bets on you, everybody else is willing to take a bet on you because they almost vouch for you. And that kind of catapulted us to working with many different brands across many industries. And here we are 7 years later. But I want to be clear, like, this project is nothing without the people that attend our events, that share our posts, that like our posts, that spread the word. And our community partners and our sponsor partners are really there because they believe in the work that we're doing. And so for me, it's about long-term strategic partnerships and not just come in when the iron is hot and get out. So
Yeah.
that's kind of been the evolution. And I think where you started, the question was around what challenges did we face, right? And it was just a lot of no's in the beginning, and that exists already, right? So what is the value proposition that you're providing? And I always say you're often closer than you think, and persistence and discipline are the key to getting to where you want to go.
Did you have experience in event production prior to the Salsa Project?
I did. So yeah, in a former life, I managed events at the Bronx Brewery. So in
Okay.
the South Bronx, and so I was curating a lot of events. I knew what it meant to build community and the importance of showing up in an authentic way. And so, yes, but not at the level of scale
Right.
and production, and definitely not at the investment level personally that I had to make, right? So it shifts from using somebody else's money to produce events to using your own hard-earned money to produce events, right? And so along the way, there's been so many testaments to this work that have really kept us going. And yeah, it's I'm still learning, and it's an evolution. And like I said, we started with 4 different phases to our company, our business. And you fast forward today, the primary element is really that immersive, that experience that we're providing. And that's what our community has told us they want.
Yeah, absolutely. As you reflect on the journey up until now, right? How would you say that those other elements continue to be present, even if it's at a lesser level than at the beginning? So, the docuseries, for example, are you still producing towards that? Is that briefly on pause? Do you have ideas for how you're going to bring it back, maybe?
Well, I mean, this is very inspiring, and the work that you're doing here, I think documenting and archiving our stories is key, right?
Mm-hmm.
Period. I would love to get back into it. I think my Rolodex of people has increased, everything from the dancer to the DJ to the musician, right? To the community and the people that support it. And I think those stories are important to archive.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's in the back of my mind. I think it's on a hiatus right now, if you will, but something that I want to pick back up with a team. Just speaking frankly, I don't have the bandwidth to focus on everything, but it is an important element, and I hope to do it. At the moment, the way we are documenting is through our events and working with different videographers and photographers to document moments. And then we've done some work like where we've gone to Cuba, right, for La Festival de la Salsa, which is more of an Afro-Cuban timba festival, and documenting that. We've done Dia Nacional in Puerto Rico. We're headed back out there for another salsa festival here shortly to document that. So we're doing our part there and highlighting some of the names of the newer generation that are coming along. In terms of merch, we haven't dropped a capsule in about a year. So we are due for one and working on something here in the near future for our 7-year anniversary. And then our online platform, I think it manifests itself through our collaborations, right? So we do many collaborations and a lot of non-traditional collaborations, right? Like we partnered with coffee brands. We partnered with visual artists. We partnered with designers. We've partnered with museums, right? We've done a lot of non-traditional things, but always staying true to our mission and cause. So I think where we started, it's evolved and those elements still exist, but I would like to come to the forefront a bit more
Yeah.
as we think about the next 1 to 5 years.
Absolutely. And something that you just mentioned that I want to reiterate is that common thread of intentionality and always tying back to your mission and your vision, which I think is impressive. When you think about what you would like for it to look like in the next couple of years or even the end of this year, how are you planning for that? Is it bigger events? Is it more events or less events, but bigger quantity? Where's your head at? And it's okay if you don't know.
No, for sure. I mean, it's something I've been thinking a lot about recently. I'm like, man, 7 years, what's next? Right. And I think the big thing for us and the vision is really to scale this idea, right? And sometimes scaling it is more people, right? In terms of who attends your event and the community that you're building. Scaling it could be multi-city, right? And how do you start to resonate in maybe key cities such as Miami, Chicago, LA? I also think there's a team element to all of this that I've been thinking about, right? How do we expand our team? How do we bring in maybe an additional partner or two that have a different skill set that can help us kind of amplify our work and take it to the next level? So definitely thinking about it. I'm not exactly clear what it looks like, but I know it's bigger than what it exists as today. And it requires people that believe in our mission to help us grow. And I think right now, I'm the biggest kind of impediment to our growth because I try to handle every aspect as this is my baby.
Yeah.
And it gets in the way of our scale, right? And so the team building aspect is big here. And you probably have heard it before, but a lot of my mentors have shared is your greatest asset is your team, right? And you can't do it all. And so how do you automate some things, right, in the digital age we live in? And then there's certain things where you need the human touch. And what does that look like? Where you create efficiencies and you're adding value via skill sets that you don't have or that exist within your tool set. So kind of the three facets that I'm thinking about currently as I think about growth. And hopefully, we're doing bigger shows with bigger names, with more people, but doing it in a very intentional, authentic way that is true to our community.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about the impact that you want to have in the salsa community, beyond just preserving the culture, right? What do you want people to feel during your events, after the events? When they think of the Salsa Project, what do you want to come to mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our community is so diverse. People of all walks of life, socioeconomic backgrounds, genders, races. It's really beautiful. And I think music is one of those things that's universal and uniting. And so for me, I think it depends at what spectrum you're at and how you enter one of our events, right? Are you new to an event, new to the language, right? And you're just coming for the vibe and the experience, right? And that's great, right? And there's others who are dancers, right? And they love this music, right? And I want them to feel inspired, invigorated, and connected, right? And then there's others that come at it from like a historical or like classically trained, right? Musician, for example, that attends our event, and they're seeing it from a different angle, right? The quality of what you're putting out. And so for me, at the end of the day, I want everybody to feel welcomed. I want there to be a sense of family, right, within our events. And I want you to walk away hopefully feeling a bit intrigued if it's new to you and wanting to learn more. Because as I started this conversation, there's a historical lens to it. But at a minimum, I hope you had a good time.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Like I said, I can attest to all of those things, but that's just one person, When you think about the growth of the Salsa Project, how can people best support?
Great question. So I think there's the stuff that I consider free, right? A like, a share, a comment, coming to an event, right? Or sharing an event. But when I think about what is really needed during this time, it's really our community coming together and cross-functional collaboration, right? So you might be in the media space, right? And I might be in the music space. and you might be in the coffee business and you might be in the beverage business. How can we all work together, right, to elevate our platforms? Because we're kind of all doing the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Trying to preserve our culture through our specific lens.
Yeah.
And so, specifically for us, you know, there's always the talent, time, and treasure when you think of like boards and whatnot. And so, that is critical where we're at right now. I think we're at this interesting inflection point. And so, there's people out there, right, that are passionate about this work. If they're connected through their corporate employers, Hispanic Heritage Month is coming,
It
right?
is.
Is there an opportunity to get in front and showcase this work to your colleagues? That always helpful. If there's, you know, a skill set, you're an accountant or, you know, tax advisor, like all of these things matter for a small business. And so those are elements that I'm just constantly thinking about that I never really thought about as we continue to grow and scale. So I think there's like our community, like, share, comment. And then I think on the flip side, it's like time, talent, treasure.
For sure. That makes a lot of sense. When you think about preserving culture, right? First of all, why is it so important to preserve salsa culture and everything that comes with it? And what role do you think younger generations have in helping keep it alive?
Oof, man. Great question. So salsa culture to me is more than just the music, right? I
Mm-hmm.
alluded to it being an immigration story, a story of our struggle, a story of our challenges, but also a story of triumph, right? And so to me, that's what salsa culture is when you really dig deep. And why the music was created, right? It was almost like a liberation.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think about like the generations that are coming and the younger ones that exist, I think they play a pivotal role in ensuring that salsa in our culture doesn't die. And I think the first part is exposure, right? How do you expose your kids, your nephews, your grandchildren to this music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sitting them down and explaining what it is, right? And I think there's another element that is crucial here, and it's meeting them where they're at, right? And so, you know, we're living during a very interesting time in the genre of music, and salsa has never died, but I think now it's more alive than ever. You know, you could argue, you know, Fania in the 70s and 80s. But you have people like Bad Bunny, right? Who has an album that to me is probably one of the most iconic albums of my generation.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a few salsas on there. You have, you know, Raul Alejandro, who recently dropped a song with El
Mm-hmm.
Caballero de la Salsa, Gilberto Santa Rosa. You have Raul Alejandro
Yeah.
doing a tribute to Frankie Ruiz. And so you're seeing a generation of urban artists, reggaetoneros, paying tribute to their roots and their culture and their heritage, right? And I think that's important. A lot of people ask me, like, well, what do you think about Bad Bunny? I'm like, what he's been doing for the genre is incredible, right? Because I'm an avid believer that you got to meet people where they're at. And so if they're listening to reggaeton and you're doing this hybrid in this mix, that's important because they're going to be indoctrinated with that sound, even though it's not in its purest form per se,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And so I think that's where we need to meet young people, but they play a pivotal role in carrying the mantle forward, right? It's like running a relay race, right? My parents carried the baton, but they got the baton from their ancestors. Parents passed that baton to me. I'm doing my part, but now I need to lean back and make sure my kids continue to do that, and so on and so forth. So,
Yeah.
I think we need to support new artists, right? Because the reality is the icons are dying, and their legacy will live, right? But there's a whole generation of new salsa artists that are coming out with incredible music. The sound might be a little different, right? Some people say it's not pure salsa or salsa dura, what have you. But I believe they're doing their part to preserve this music and, more importantly, their culture.
Yeah. We'll circle back on the idea of new artists in a moment, but I do want to highlight what you mentioned, which is this crossover between the reggaetoneros, Bad Bunny, J Balvin, Raul Alejandro. Not only the fact that they're modernizing the genre, but like you said, you know, pushing it forward in the faces of younger audiences, but also that taking that crossover one step forward and J Balvin, for example, being on the Tonight Show, and that representation, the fact that it's a predominantly English speaking show, it's a huge name, and it's putting not only our culture but through the music kind of at the forefront. I think that is very important. Now we circle back to the new artists. Who do you know of that we should have on our radar?
Wow, there's many. I mean, my brother Jeremy Bosch, Grammy Award winner, who has put out some incredible albums. He's a composer, producer, multi-talented. David Rivera is another one, and his sound is not traditional salsa, right? It's a little bit of jazz, funk. I would even say pop and rock, right? But again, another incredible artist that's pushing the genre forward. And then I think of people like Pete Young, right, who has an incredible sound, and it's like more purist salsa dura, but very danceable, right? And then you have people like Manolito Rodriguez and Carlo Garcia, who have projects on their own that they're working on, who again are incredible artists, but might not get played as much or as often. And then you have people who've kind of been able to push through a little bit and kind of make some noise for themselves and are putting out great music, such as Christian Alicea and Luis Figueroa, right? And so I think there's many artists, and I think people need to do their research and give it a chance. And unfortunately, in this industry, you only know about what gets played, and usually the radio has a big part of that, right? Yeah. And so if you don't hear it on the radio, you don't really know if it exists. But there's a lot out there, and we have many playlists on our website that highlight this new generation and this new era of music. And they are incredible, and they're doing their part to make sure this music doesn't die.
Absolutely. I love what you said earlier about passing the baton from generation to generation and each generation's responsibility to expose the new ones, right, to the music. I want to hear of a personal anecdote. You mentioned your daughter, so you're a father. How have you incorporated salsa into what you share with your kids?
Yeah, my two little girls. So you have a 3 and 7-year-old, and they are incredible. And my 7-year-old was at that first kind of sala session that I did, and it was over at Port Morris Distillery, so in the Port Morris area of the Bronx. And she was young, didn't know what was happening, had the little headphones. But there was this joy, right, that she had in her face by hearing this sound, right? And so as you fast forward, it gets a little bigger. And one of the things I like to do at my events is have a salsa lesson, right? A beginner's lesson to kind of break the awkwardness if you don't know how to dance, almost like an icebreaker. And several years ago, my daughter attended the event, and she was really interested in like learning the steps, and a video of her doing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And fast forward to today, right? Being around the music, now she's 7 years old, and she'll tell me, "Daddy, play this salsa song," and it's a song by Jeremy Bosch, and I'll put it every time she's in the car. Or we'll be somewhere and I'm always listening to salsa, and she'll start, doing her little 2-step. And for me, it's not that she knows everything about salsa. It's more that music excites her and she has this genuine curiosity into the music. Fast forward 7 years from now, right? I hope that there is a bit more knowledge and understanding about what it is that Daddy does and why he does it, right? And an appreciation for it. But I think, with kids specifically, there's a joy element, right, to music, and the exposure is key, right? You might not know what you're listening to, but one day you're going to connect the dots and you're going to be like, that's what Daddy was doing.
For sure.
And so that's an anecdote. And, I have video, recently she'll say, "Que viva la salsa." And it's like, it always warms my heart. Or she'll make artwork and it'll be our logo, right? The Salsa Project. So those are little things that are, ingrained, right, in her brain. And it makes me smile every time.
Would you say you're discovering a new aspect of how you perceived salsa as a result of seeing it through the eyes of your daughter, and she's experiencing some things for the first time? Has that added to your love for it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, kids are born knowing nothing, right? You're born into this world, and everything that you become is what you learn in your environment, right? And so, um, I obviously have my relationship with salsa, and
Mm-hmm.
my kids have their own relationship with salsa, right? The 3-year-old will mimic the 7-year-old, right, and do her little step. Um, but through my kids, I understand the importance, and that importance has even gotten stronger for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I wish I could bring them to every event. The reality is, a lot of stuff is happening at night and whatnot, past bedtime, or if you will. But through them, I see the opportunity to educate on this genre, and I see the importance that it does have when you are exposing them to it, right? And so I think my love for salsa hasn't changed because of my kids,
Yeah.
but it definitely has offered a different perspective as to maybe there's this opportunity to really get in front of kids, maybe in public schools, right? Where we're living in a time where all extracurricular funding is getting cut. Maybe there's an opportunity there to have somebody support our work, and again getting into these schools and showcasing this music, and the history behind it, right? Whether it's through literature, whether it's through dance, whether it's through storytelling. And so um, that's where I see the opportunities, and since their birth, I've been able to do things in my community, i.e. their schools, to amplify kind of the importance of this, and showcase it to their peers,
Mm-hmm.
where in some cases they might not be familiar with the genre.
For sure. I think exposure is key. And as you were talking, I was trying to pinpoint if I had like a first memory of when I don't know, when I learned to dance. And I can't, I really can't pinpoint it. All I know is that it's been very present in my life. And nosotros en mi familia decimos que me bailo hasta las propagandas. O sea, not just salsa, but everything. Again, going back to something I said earlier, it's part of our culture, it's in our blood. What is one of the earliest memories that you have, whether it's how you learned how to dance? Yo creo que fue en la sala de mi casa, o sea, viendo a mis papás o a mis tíos, but can you pinpoint that? Or is there a story that sticks out?
Yeah, I've had great conversations with my mother. Again, she worked for Fania,
Mm-hmm.
and I won't share on this episode, but those have been core memories for me, like walking the beach in Puerto Rico and her just sharing moments of the early days of Fania. But I think personally, I mean, many shows that I went to, but specifically the anecdote that I'll give you here is, I remember, and you might laugh, is I was like 15 years old, and there was something back in the day called CIN Teen Bashes,
Mm-hmm.
and there were these teen events, right? And they allowed teens to go in, right? You couldn't drink, but you could go and dance, and it was predominantly reggaeton. And I had two left feet, even though my mother's an incredible dancer,
Okay.
and everybody could dance reggaeton. And they would play always one or two salsas every night. And I noticed, I was like, man, all the beautiful ladies dance salsa. And nobody could dance with them because nobody danced salsa. And I remember going home one day and I'm like, Mom, I want you to teach me how to dance salsa. And my mom, she's in the movie Our Latin Thing. Like, she's an incredible dancer, and has inspired me a lot. And I remember going home and her teaching me, and fast forward, I started to learn, and then I added my own style. And como digo, yo bailo salsa de calle,
Mm,
right? I'm not like classroom taught,
same.
and I don't have all the spins, but I have the passion and the feeling. And so that's a memory that I have, being a young teenager and wanting to learn the music, so that in those moments I could go out on the dance floor and shine and dance with the ladies that were dancing to the music
Yeah.
during that time. So funny story. I don't know if I shared that with many, but yeah, that was 15, and I think before that it was just really it being around the
Yeah.
household, and then after that it was really the concerts that I would attend, all over New York City, right? I'll never forget seeing Eddie Palmieri and Pedrito Martinez in Subrosa, right, in meatpacking, and my dad took me to that, and it was like this intimate setting, and Unfortunately, there aren't as many salsa clubs anymore in the city, but you'll see salsa nights. But when you look back at the 70s, right, it was the heydays of salsa. Like you could go
Mm-hmm.
see Hector Lavoe one night, Eddie Palmieri another night, Rowena another night, and so on and so forth. And so, um, sometimes I'm asked, what is an era you wish you were alive for if you had a time machine? And it would definitely be that one.
Oh my gosh, I can 100% relate. And that actually reminds me, because you and I have spoken about this, La Salsa Vida, that documentary we both attended, and it talks about the origins of the genre within New York and Colombia. And as you were talking, I was reminded, yes, there is no club, but New York is still such a hub for this genre in particular. There, especially in the summertime, there is Sunday night salsa at Verlaine's. There is, Fridays in Industry City, Thursdays in Hudson. Like, it's beautiful. And I'm sure you've attended. I certainly have. I have them blocked on my calendar as many times as I can go. But it's eye-opening every time that I go to see, wow, no solamente son latinos, o sea, qué chévere ver a nuestra gente, but also people who are interested in or already appreciate the culture and the music that comes around it. And they just show up. And again, many times they don't know anybody and they're just kind of like, vamos a ver, como que, ¿qué pasa? And I think that's very telling about the good vibes that come with the history, right? Which is unity, and partaking in this like shared experience. As I think about going back to the Salsa Project, how, like, if you had a pie, like pie in the sky, no limits on any ideas, what's a goal that you have?
Yes, I think it goes back to the scale
Yeah.
of what we're doing, and wanting to scale it a bit further. And I think one of the dreams I have is doing a salsa festival. So you think of the Coachellas of the world, the Lollapaloozas, the Sueños Fest in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first step is even becoming part of that, right? So having like collaboration with them for a salsa stage, if you will. But bigger pie in the sky would be to produce my own, similar to what you see in Cali in December,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's really inspiring, or even what you see in Peru, or in Mexico, in Argentina, hasta Puerto Rico, right? Or hasta Cuba, right? It's so many places have these like large scale events with a lot of the icons, and so one day I would love to do that. But again, I want it to feel authentic and not going and moving away from our mission.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the dreams and goals, and to have the people I've always looked up to, right? I've met them, a lot of them, but now working with them would be, otro 20, como dicen.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're gonna do some rapid fire questions. So this is gonna be kind of quick. This may be hard to answer, but what is your go-to salsa song?
Oof. Songo Roco Songo by Hector Lavoe.
Okay, who's your favorite artist?
Hector Lavoe and Ismael Rivera.
If you could collaborate with any one artist or musician for the Salsa Project that you haven't already collaborated with, who would it be?
Gilberto Santa Rosa, and if you're thinking band, El Gran Combo.
Okay. What is one thing that you want people to know about salsa culture and its history?
It's rich, and it's a story that has many nuances, and you should know about it.
Speaking of nuances, what is something that people would be surprised to know about salsa culture and its history?
It started out of a necessity to find comfort in a community where many Puerto Ricans felt like they didn't belong.
Okay. To round us out, give me an inside scoop. What's coming up? What can we look forward to that you haven't shared with anybody before?
Sure. So we have many irons in the fire right now, many
Love
projects.
to hear that.
But one that I'm excited for that's coming down the pipeline is a collaboration on a beer that we'll be putting out with the Bronx Brewery, in collaboration with Café Colmado. So looking to release that around our anniversary, and still figuring out dates and timing and the logistics, but that's something that is in the works that no one knows about at the moment.
That's
So
exciting. I think it was you guys that you had some sort of contest for people to submit pictures or something to put on a beer.
yep.
Love those ideas. What other ideas have you had in the past to engage the community in that way?
We'll do raffles and stuff for tickets, which I think is kind of common. I would say that one was like the coolest that we've done in terms of kind of crowdsourcing content and getting it up there. I think there's an opportunity for us to do a lot more of it. But as of late, it's really been focusing on like the production of the content and the events. But we need to figure out a way to engage more with our community and getting them involved and closer to the work that we're doing. But that was definitely a cool one.
Amazing. Was there anything that we didn't already talk about that you want to talk or you want to share?
No, I mean, grateful for the opportunity. I'm nowhere near where I want to be with the project, but humbled and grateful for how far we've come, and looking forward to what lays ahead. And yeah, the support of our community and the people that are interested in our work, and those that have been there from day one and continue to support us. And yeah, who's to tell what the future has in store?
You know, I was just reminded before we close out that this is not your full-time job. You have a whole other day job that you dedicate your time to. What would you have to say for someone who wants to pursue a passion project as well, but isn't sure how to find the idea of balance? Because balance doesn't truly exist. There's always something that has got to give. How do you do it?
I think it's prioritization, right? Like, my full-time job is the priority, right? That's what allows me to do this. That's what allows me to live, right? So that's always going to come first, right? And then I think it's understanding what time are you left with and what's important, right? And how do you want to spend that time, whether it's with your family, whether it's traveling, whether it's through the music. And I've been fortunate enough is that this journey has allowed me to kind of morph all of the passions, right? My passion for music, my love for community and event curation, my love for travel. Like, it's kind of all come together and culminated through this work. But prioritization is key. If not, you'll die by a death of 100 cuts and you'll never start, right?
Amen.
And so I think having an idea is one thing. Starting it is another thing. And I think in our community, we have a lot of ideas, but actually acting on those ideas is often a challenge. And so I think managing your time is the most important thing, as time is your greatest resource. And if you believe in something and you really want something, you'll do it.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's been a balancing act. I don't sleep a lot.
That makes two of us.
And so, yeah, it's just how bad do you want it? And when you start it, there's going to be setbacks, but you're often closer than you think.
For sure. I would almost add to what you mentioned. It's lanzándose, actually starting, but also maintaining it is hard too, because once you
Absolutely.
have the courage de lanzarte, and then you're like, okay, how do I keep this going? And keeping it going with the same mission, with the same intentionality, the same energy, it's hard.
Yeah, even when you're tired, right? Like, no one cares, right? Or, you're producing a podcast, right? What's next week's content? Like, well, you got to produce the content for next week. And so it's this constant, like, when's the next event? What is the next thing you're doing? And so it's just, it's a lot of work.
I was going to say, I constantly think about it. Do you? Like, is the
Oh,
Salsa
all the
Project
time.
always on your mind?
All the time.
That's your
I'm
Roman
right
Empire.
now thinking about what I got to
Yes,
do, when I
yes.
get out of here and what's next. And so it's the entrepreneurial life, and I wouldn't change it. It's like, how bad do you want it, and how much does it mean to you? Like I said, there's many ideas, but those that actually act on those ideas are a lot fewer. And so, I always say, believe in what you got, persevere against it, stay disciplined, y pa'lante.
I mean, well, thank you so much for joining me. Keep going. I'm so proud of what you've created, having just been a part of it as an attendee, but tienes mi apoyo, however I can help, however we can collaborate. And thank you so much for sharing this space with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Always grateful for the opportunities to share this space and share a little bit more about what we're doing. So thank you, and
Of course.
wishing you the best with this and
Thank you,
all the
thank
other
you.
endeavors that lay ahead for you.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening and watching. Until next time.